if I look at leadership today, as opposed to leadership yesterday, I see a couple of things. I see the whole issue of dealing with the younger people, and therefore as a leader, how does that impact or affect what you do? I see the big thing around governance and ethics, and just over the last 1 or 2 years, the regulators have kept piling out new regulations and guidelines, etc. If you look at the Capital Markets Authority with their guidelines for entities which have issued securities, if you look at the new 1,000-page Companies Act released last year, and all these things which, if you look at codes like Mwongozo for public service, so a lot of things happening in that space. So we've got all the ingredients, but actually the execution of this and the delivery and the impact of that is what leadership should then be thinking about. Innovation. There's some scary tales going around now about what happens 30 years, 50 years down the line to institutions and to leadership. A lot of disruption as well, and of course thinking through the way things get done and how you, as a leader, get results. So I call them leadership bells, but for me this is some of the things that, as you think about strategic leadership, think about leading in the future, some of these words pop up, and you've got to kind of deal with them. Change is a constant. In 2012, I wrote my biography, or somebody wrote my biography. It's called Beyond the Shadows of My Dream. We released it at the end of, I think, November 2012, just before I left KCB at the end of December. People thought I was going into politics in 2013, that's why I was writing this book, but they've been kind of disappointed. But in one of the chapters in this book, which is available on Amazon, on Kindle, you can find it there. In one of the chapters, I actually talk about these things as not as my style of leadership, but as some of the things that I experienced during my leadership journey. So I talk about the role of the leader in inspiration. I talk about leadership as things something that you don't do alone, you do it with people. I talk about values and teams. I talk about the role of a leader in prioritizing what they need to do at any one time. I talk about learning as an essential part of leadership, because you never get to the end of learning, right? I talk about role modeling. I talk about emotional intelligence in the context of empathy, being able to sort of really get to know what is happening with the people that you lead and how you then relate to them. I talk about legacy. I talk about the future. I talk about communication. And for me, this has not changed. In fact, as you know, leadership is probably the most talked about subject, the most written about subject. It's almost like there's nothing new that anybody can tell anybody about leadership. And yet, we still don't get it right. And one of my friends, the dean of the Aga Khan Media University, told me the other day when we were having this conversation, I asked him, so we teach leadership and we talk leadership and we do leadership, but how come that every day we open the newspapers and there's something going wrong? He's an American guy. He said to me, Martin, that question is spot on. And I looked at him and he said, it is because leadership is so hard. We can read about it, we can talk about it, but the minute you assume a position of leadership, there's so much happening around you that you forget everything you've read and heard, etc., and you try to deploy your own solutions, which perhaps are not the right solutions in that instance. So one of the programs that we run at the leadership group is really having a strong link between leadership and communication. Because you as a leader must be out there. People must know what you stand for. People must know. You must communicate strategy. You must communicate what is going on. You must communicate the future. You must communicate, different aspects of what's going on within the organization. If you are as leaders before my time, used to lock themselves up in this corner office, which is sort of concrete walls all around them. The door is locked, and you can actually not, you don't know what's going on in there. Then you're actually not leading in today's world and the future world. You know, I got a culture shock at Barclays. I used to work for Barclays. I went to work for government for 2 years. Then I came back to work for Barclays. And before I left, I was finance director. So I had this nice little office with, but it had glass around it so people could see whether I was sleeping or actually working. Then I went out. When I came back, all the walls had been broken. And we were all sitting in an open place like this. And I said, so where's my office? And they said, you know, your desk is there. I said, but I've been a permanent secretary. How can you give me a desk there when I've been used to sitting in an office with all these 2 secretaries out there and so on? But the world had changed in the 2 years that I was out of that institution. So this is constantly changing, and this is what kind of today's world is. I'm coming to the end of my presentation, and probably just trying to pull it together. You've probably seen it in different words in my previous slide from my 2012 book. But actually, for me, strategic leadership is around empowerment. It's around letting people try out new things, because you know, innovation never happened without people being led to try things, right? It's around being present all the time. It's around people knowing that when you're with them, you're actually with them. It's not one foot in, one foot out in this process. Getting used to disruption. People want to build trust in you, and therefore transparency is quite important here. Constantly learning and reflecting on what's happening. When I'm wearing my executive coaching hat, this whole idea about reflection is very, very important. You've got something you want to work on, you want to reflect, and just make sure that, you know, my decisions for today, you know, would I have made them in different circumstances, and how do they help me for tomorrow as a leader? And so I find that strategic leaders must anticipate what's happening tomorrow. They must challenge what's happening today and the status quo. Decision making is a big part of strategy. I've talked about learning at length. Leadership is really around aligning very, very many things. You're aligning your strategy with execution, so that you don't have a big document sitting somewhere which is not being implemented. You're aligning the interests of your staff with the organization. You're aligning your performance with the stakeholder, the shareholder expectations. You're aligning the board with yourselves as a leader. You're aligning different elements all the time in the institution. And of course, you're interpreting what's going on in and around you. And these are themes which I've picked up from some articles I've read in the Harvard Business Review and other articles that I've picked up in the last day or so. So I think that is really where I am. As I mentioned, this is what I do now. These are our areas of interest. I'm probably spending 80% of my time in executive coaching, maybe 70% between those two. I'm probably spending 20%, 10, 15% there, and I'm spending 10% in the rest of that area. So that is it from me. I hope that you found that interesting, and I think the big part of this discussion passes for me to hear from you how you are sort of progressing on your leadership journey. So thank you all very much.
Is even taking it higher. He must have learned from you. And I guess even as teachers, we appreciate when we see our students doing better than us. When I teach a student and then I meet with him and he's a professor, that's my joy. Somebody who has published and so on. Now that we are being made leaders at Park University, and God willing, we'll also be at a point where we'll be preparing for succession. I think I would like you to go a little bit deeper there. What did you do? How did you go about all the succession planning? What factors made you focus on the person that you left? Or did you have fears? What if he's left and then he's not able to carry forward my dream, my vision? Just to share, to go a little bit deeper in that, because I think that will be very, very important for me and for us who are here.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that question. So, I mean, sitting there listening to me, I don't know what's going on in your minds. Whether you are thinking that I've actually painted this very rosy picture, as if the world is a straight line, as if life is a straight line. And I must say that the untold story around the succession is that it was quite a difficult experience. It was very trying moments before we got to that point. I don't know if in this room there are people who actually follow the KCB story. As leadership students, I would suggest that you actually do look at this story again, because in 2010, in 2008, 2009, we invested in this new core banking system, which was quite problematic. I think the first 3 months we couldn't even issue statements to customers. Right, the whole thing was just sort of just went haywire. It probably took us a better part of 2 years, 2 to 3 years, to actually get the system really bedded down. So I didn't talk about that bit, but I talked about the good bit, which is we succeeded in implementing this core banking system. There was a lot of pain behind it, right? As those of you who are customers may know that there were periods when you actually couldn't access this and couldn't access that. Around that time in 2010, we then decided that we were going to go through a good to great transformation. So we all bought Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, and gave it to everybody, all our staff, all our senior staff, read this from start to finish, because we're now going to become a great bank, a great institution. I'm not sure how many read it actually, but we kind of summarized it, did an executive summary of the key points in that book to the board, to management, and to staff. And I ran around, I did a lot of walking. I mean, KCB at that time had something like close to 200 branches, 300 or 200. But if there were 200, I actually physically visited 185 of those branches, irrespective of which part of the country they were. So I'm actually sort of meeting people. We brought in McKinsey Consulting in 2010 or 2011 to sort of lead us in the next journey of growth and transformation. They were with us for 5 months. Part of that, the result of that was that one of our real difficult points was the structure, the way we were structured in the organization. I had 2 deputies. When I went to the organization originally, my predecessor, Terry, had I think 16 people reporting to him, 16 or 17 people. So our exco meetings used to be like a town hall. He would sit there and he would be like, and I think 80% of the guys never said anything around that table. So I had this conversation with Terry. I said, Terry, having 20 people in a room trying to just, may not work. Why don't we restructure this thing and look for something else? So, but he didn't want to rock the boat. So as soon as he left, we then went into this structure where there was a CEO, one deputy, and then all the other functions, they reported into the 2 deputies. And this worked well for a while. One of the deputies came from outside, one was an internal candidate. But then what soon started happening is there was vicious competition among these guys, almost tearing themselves and the institution apart. And so in 2011, we decided that we were going to change this structure. And and went through a process where everybody in the organization except me had to reapply for their jobs, right, including my deputies. In the process, some of them liked it, some of them didn't like it. So those who didn't like it just walked. They just said, okay, you know, me, I've been here for X number of years, you can't treat me like this, and they took a walk, and that was okay. Some agreed to go through the process, and they went through the process. Some got their jobs back, some didn't. In that process, the finance director then, who was one of my deputies, left. And we then recruited Joshua as CFO, as finance director, around about 2011, sometime. And by that time, I'd worked through 1, 2, 3 contracts, and I was going to be leaving at the end of my next contract, and therefore the succession discussion was very much alive. And so as we were looking for a new CFO, we're also looking for, and these new leaders coming in, we're also looking for traits that were good for CEOship in the future. And therefore what happened when I announced my exit about a year before I did, and during that year we then went through another process of recruiting a CEO. We advertised externally, people applied, we opened it internally as well, people like Joshua applied. They went through a process. Although he was a CFO, he still applied for the CEO job, interviewed alongside external candidates and others, and he emerged as the best fit for the institution. He had been in the institution for slightly over 1 year, so he had a bit of knowledge of the institution. But the fears to talk about that were things like, but this guy's never worked in a bank. How can he be a CEO? You know, he's an accountant. You know, he's not a banker. Blah blah blah. But I think he's absorbed himself well, because in leadership you don't have to know everything. You've got to surround yourself with good people, with great people in the different disciplines. And I think this is what Joshua has done. It hasn't been a smooth ride for him. I think in his first year, he also lost quite a number of people in the organization, brought in new ones, tried this, tried the other, but he's at a point of stability now, from what I see. But the succession debate was subject was always on the board agenda, and it was always on the CEO's agenda at different levels. So we always had, every function had their strategic, their succession planning stuff, which was always discussed at least once a year at a board meeting, right? So it's a deliberate kind of thing. I don't know if that clarifies the point that, yeah, right. So it wasn't a walk in the park. I think it was slightly more complex than what I described earlier.
Yes, sir. Stand. Now, looking at the graph right at the beginning, we realized that that's about time or when KANU has just been voted out. I can see 2000, 2001, 2002, it's all minus. Maybe you could comment on the political, that kind of a political transition and its effects on the growth. That's one.
On the first question, which is the impact of politics, yeah, obviously 2002 was a turning point in this country in terms of the political side. And the story around between 1999 and 2000 and 2001 was actually, this was a dark period for this bank. Things were all going negative. Loans were being given out, people were not repaying those loans. The culture in the organization was not amenable to a service culture. A lot of people were grown horns because of political godfathers and so on, and therefore it was quite difficult for the institution to really make much progress. And as I mentioned, the government actually at this point made a decision to sell it off and call for bidders. And there was a big report by PwC or somebody saying, no, sir, this thing is hopeless, okay? But and I was, in a sense, I was part of a history here because Gareth George, who we brought in as a turnaround expert, had been my CEO at Barclays, right? Because I was in Barclays from 1992 up to this time. And Gareth was actually my boss here. And when we were looking for a turnaround expert, And I was sitting at the treasury at the time, and we scouted around, and Garrett's name popped up. And we actually went to Barclays and convinced him to come and help save this institution. And he came in for this period here. And that was I give recognition to him, even in my book. Not many people liked him. I think everybody hated him for what he was doing here. But it laid an excellent foundation for what this bank is today, in my view, all right? And then the stabilizing factor of this guy. So there's a new government in 2003, the Kibaki government. It's hands-off. Therefore, leaders and CEOs can actually do what they are employed to do without looking over their shoulders. And the rest is kind of history, because then the leaders took advantage of the empowerment and not having to look over your shoulders as you make decisions. And as you rightly say, that has helped this institution as well. And I think we live in a political environment, and politics will always be around, but as a leader you need to be very, very careful about where you're playing that card in the interest of the organization, sustainable business model. All right? I think people have tried to play it the political godfather way. Sometimes it has worked, sometimes it hasn't worked. Sometimes it works for a season, and then when there's a change, then it doesn't work.